Today's video will be on histograms. So our learning goals for today, by the end of the lesson you'll be able to construct a histogram from a given data set, construct a histogram from a frequency table, and identify if the data shown in the histogram is skewed or symmetrical. Okay, so frequency histograms. We've got a picture of one here on the right. So a histogram is an illustrated representation of a frequency table. So if you haven't watched the video on frequency tables yet, maybe go back and watch that one first. Okay, so the horizontal x-axis, this one along the bottom here, it shows the item. So for instance, in our example here, we've got pages in Year 8 textbooks. The vertical y-axis, which is this one here, it always shows the frequency. So obviously it's showing the frequency of those page numbers. So therefore the height of those columns that you can see in the graph there correspond to the frequency of values in that class interval. So the frequency that these books have, 100 to 200 pages, 200 to 300 pages, 300 to 400 pages, or 400 to 500 pages. So there's usually no gaps between the columns, so you can see that they're all wedged up next to each other. That's because on the real edge of this column here, say we'd have, 199 pages, and right here we'd have 201 pages. So they're all flowing together, and that borderline there is obviously 200 coming up the middle. So there's no gap between the values, so there's no gaps between our columns. You may, however, notice that there's a little bit of a gap here between 0 and 100. That's because our pages or our values don't start at 0. So our intervals don't start at 0. We didn't start at 0 to 100 because there's no textbooks that have 0 to 100 pages. So we've just left a little space there, and then our columns are all wedged together. So the scales are also evenly spread. So if you notice, each time we're going up there, it's going up by 100. We don't suddenly have a 50 or a 300 in there. It's always an even spread as we're moving up, and that's classic of all histograms. Okay, so there's another type of histogram which is called a percentage frequency histogram. And a percentage frequency histogram shows the frequency as a percentage of the total. So for instance, here we've got heights of office towers in a city. So our heights range from 0 to 50. So notice this time there's no gap on the left-hand side. That's because we are starting at 0. So 0 to 50, because there are some low towers that would be less than 50 meters tall. 50 to 100, 150 to 200, 200 to 250. And then if you follow it up, a percentage is on the side. So a percentage frequency. So for instance, 5% of the buildings are under 50 meters tall. 20% of the buildings are between 50 and 100 meters. We've got 30%, which is the most common, between 100 and 150 meters tall. 25% 150 to 200 meters tall, and again 20% are between 200 and 250. So if we were to add all of these values together, so our 5, our 20, 30, 25, and 20, if you would add those all together, hopefully you would get 100%, because it's showing the percentage frequency of the total. Yeah. Okay, so the other thing that our learning goal was to identify whether histograms are skewed or symmetrical. So this just means, is all of our data clumped in the middle, or is it clumped to one side? So if you look here at the height of students, so height in centimeters and then the frequency. So obviously these are the kind of students that I want to teach because they're all under 129 centimeters tall. You can see we've kind of got this kind of bell-shaped curve. So our most common values are in the middle there. It's kind of like a normal distribution. So this is what we'd call symmetrical. So if we cut it in half, if you had a straight line and you cut it in half, it'd be identical on both sides. So that would be a symmetrical data set. And usually things like height and weight tend to be kind of symmetrical. Populations do kind of have that bell-shaped curve. Then if we look at this one on the left-hand side, when we've got the age of Best Actress Award winners, which is my kind of subtle note towards, issues within age and acting. Anyway, not the point in maths. So if we look at this data, we actually don't have that same kind of bell curve. We kind of have it all being pushed down one end, all towards the younger end. So this is what we call skewed data, because if we put a line in the middle, which is about about 45, that would be the middle there, we can see it's not even on either side. So it's kind of skewed, and it's skewed to the left, so we'd say it's, skewed left, that data there. Okay, so we've got a worked example here. We're going to represent the following as a histogram. So it's a number of siblings and the frequency. So we know our x-axis, which is along the bottom, is going to be our categories. So we're going to have, that would be, start again. The x-axis along the bottom is going to be our categories. So it's going to be the number of siblings. So 1, 2, 3, arrow, you would use a ruler in your books. I do not have a ruler to use, so my lines will not be as straight as I would expect yours to be, so please use your rulers. Okay, we kind of run out of space there. 4. Okay, going up here. Okay, so we'll go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Sorry, writing there, you're getting 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Okay, so we're going to label our axes as well. So our x is going to be the number of siblings, and the y is going to be the frequency. So you can write that sideways. Ooh, how do I do that sideways on this? So ooh, let's rub that out and try again, and let's spell frequency correct this time. Okay, let's try again. Okay, frequency. Ugh. Okay, so sorry, I can't write sideways on this pad that I'm using, so yours will be a lot neater. Okay, so the first one is 0, and there were 18 students who had 0 siblings. So you would use your ruler and you would find the exact place to put this there, and we'll drop that down to our 0. Okay, 1 sibling. How many people do have 1 sibling? 25. So obviously it's going to go up, it's touching this because 0 and 1, you know, all our histograms touch together there. And there is 25 people with 1 sibling, and that will be a straight line that you are drawing, not a bowed line like I have there. Okay, straight line. Ugh. Okay, so 2 siblings is 17. Again, you're going to use your ruler and find out exactly where 17 is, so you might need to use the millimeters to work it out exactly. And 3 siblings, there are 5 people with 3 siblings. So that would be our histogram there. So I'll rub that out because we didn't actually have any data on 4. So yours would obviously be a lot neater than that. And the finishing touch, which I hope you know all graphs need, would be a title. So we could just call this number of siblings. And then if you'd surveyed, you know, a certain class, you'd write, you know, in whatever class or in the school or whatever. You'd be as specific as you could with your titles. Please use a ruler. Please have yours neater than mine. Hopefully that just gives you an idea of what you're supposed to do there. Okay, so our second worked example, ooh, this is going to take me a while. So the data below shows the number of hamburgers sold over the 1-hour lunch rush at various fast food stores. So construct a frequency table and then a histogram of the data. Okay, so frequency table, we're going to put tallies every time we get a certain amount there. You can see here the number of hamburgers sold, rather than writing, you know, different categories, 0 is 1, then 1, 2, 3, and so on, because there's up to 34. We'd have huge amounts of rows there. We're kind of putting it into amounts. So 0 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 14. That makes it easier to deal with this data. So the first one said they sold 19 hamburgers. So that would fit in this. And we've got 1, and we've got 5, 19, 15, 17, 23, 22, 15, ooh, got up to 5 there, 31, ooh, they sold a lot, 5, 13, 13 again, 2, 3, 14, 11, 6, 3, 6, ooh, should be there, 18, 0, ooh, that's a bad restaurant. Oh, that was the 5th one, so actually I'll rub that one out. Use my black pen, that should be there, 5, and 1. Okay, so this is probably going to take me a very long time, so you would continue that for the rest of the data. For the sake of making this video a little bit shorter, I am going to stop there, otherwise you'll be watching for like 10 minutes of me just putting tallies in. You get the point. Once you finish tallying, you're going to write your number in the frequency table. Okay, so here's one I prepared earlier. By the end of it, you should have your frequency table completed like this. So now you know the number sold, and you know the frequency. So now we're going to draw up another histogram. So if I have a ruler, actually I'll try with a ruler. I don't know if this will work. I've never used a ruler on my pad that I'm drawing on. Okay, so we're going to draw our axes here. Oh, that is very straight. So our frequency will go on our y-axis, and the number of hamburgers sold in 1 hour goes on our x-axis. Okay, well, why didn't that work? So let's go, that's better. Okay, so our first one here, how many? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 different categories. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's not going to fit. Anyway, I'll make it a little bit smaller. 7. So they'll be evenly spread, unlike mine, which obviously, again, I've run out of space. So evenly spread. So we'll have 0, 4. No, we will not have 4, we'll have 5. 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. So you can see there they are evenly spaced, except for my first one because I ran out of space on the screen and it won't let me write off the screen, but yours will be evenly spaced on each of your columns, starting at 0 and going up in your even spread, which will be 5s. And then your frequency will be on your other axis. So our frequency has to go from, what's that, right up to 14. So it's up to you. I'm going to go up in 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Oh, I could have spaced those out more. And again, you are going to use a ruler. Frequency, writing sideways does not work on this thing. Anyway, so our first one, 0 to 4, so that'll come from our 0 here. Actually, I'll use a purple so we can see it. So we'll be starting from our 0 here and going up to the 5, because we're having between 0 and 5, well, 0 and 4 burgers sold, and that's 6. So we're going to find 6, go across and drop it down. Our next one is our 5 to 9, and there were 14 of those, so lots of places are only selling 5 to 9 burgers in that hour. Go across our 14, drop it down. Again, use your ruler so that it lines up. Now, selling 10 to 14 burgers, we have got 10, so we're going to find 10 there with our ruler, roll across and drop it down to our 15. Ideally, all your columns will be evenly spaced because you have a ruler. You will take your time and you'll be able to measure. I haven't figured out how to do that yet on my drawing pad. Maybe in my later videos I'll have beautiful graphs. For now, don't do what I do. So our next category is our 15 to 19 burgers, and we had 13 of those. So we're going to go up. Where's our 13? In between those two and across. I don't know if that was up far enough. And then drop it down. Now, selling 20 to 24 burgers, we only had 8 people there, so we're going to find our 8. Go across, drop it down. Now our 25 to 29 burgers, we had 4 places selling that many burgers. Drop it down, and our last place, 30 to 34 burgers, we had 6 places who are, you know, doing great there and selling that many burgers. So ideally this line should be straight. There we go. And again, what was this histogram showing? Well, this was showing the number of burgers sold in the 1 hour rush period. So number of burgers sold in 1 hour rush period. And we would call this on our x-axis, which is our different groups, that's the number of hamburgers. Number of burgers sold. Excellent. Okay, so that'd be your histogram. As I've said a bajillion times, rounded to the nearest bajillion, you are using a ruler. It's all going to be evenly spaced and it's going to look beautiful, unlike mine. And that is the end of our video on histograms. If you have any questions, come and see me in class.